Welcome to Life Brand Management Podcast with your girl BC Starks, aka Brittany. Hey, today I'm here with episode 15 of this podcast, and I wanted to hop on today to talk about the subject of why things get worse before they get better while you're on your intentional creation journey. Right? This is a topic that I've seen all over YouTube. People label or title it different things like why opposites appear during my manifestation journey and pretty much how they handle those things. And so I wanted to hop on here today and give a little bit of my perspective as I'm on my journey and I'm experiencing things as well. Right? Because no one is immune to this. It's almost as if when you make a decision, as a matter of fact, I'm going to quote one of my favorite books, The Alchemist. And it says, once a decision is made, it's almost as if the soul of the world tests you in every way to see how bad you want it. And when I first read that quote, I understood it from a totally different level than I do now. Now, with my knowledge base of quantum physics and my knowledge base of parallel realities and universes and my knowledge base of just how mindset work and human psychology, I understand that from a very different perspective. Pretty much the same, but like just a different level of seeing it. So for me, I understand that to be that the reason opposite things appear in your reality once you make a decision is because there are things in your subconscious, beliefs that you have previously held prior to your decision, right? And what the subconscious does is it brings those things to the surface for you to address it, for you to face it, meaning no longer suppress it, no longer run from it, no longer hide from it, but overcome it by showing up differently or responding or reacting emotionally in a different way when those things come up. So, or when you're challenged with those limiting beliefs or they come up in different ways. And so I'm understanding that to in a very personal way as certain things in my reality that I made a decision to intentionally create for myself along the journey. Opposite things have popped up, like almost the complete opposite of what it is I'm intentionally creating. But the opposite things that have popped up are actually old patterns, right? So what you'll find is that it's not just, that the opposite popped up along your journey when you're intentionally creating. What you notice is that whatever that opposite thing is actually a pattern. It's the very pattern that you're deciding to break. It's the very pattern that you're deciding to shift from and no longer identify with. And so the reason that it comes up is so that whatever that pattern is, when you see it come up and the decision has already been made, that you are no longer going to emotionally react to it or emotionally engage in it in the same way. That is your moment of truth. That is the testing period. Are you going to continue to see it this way? Are you going to continue to show up with that same old self-concept, that concept of self? Are you going to see it from the same perspective? And what I'm finding is that as I'm using my tools, as I'm building my knowledge base, as I'm doing like my meditations to gain more awareness of my subconscious and connect more with my soul and the unified field, what I'm noticing is that as I make decisions to break certain patterns and the opposite arises, every now and then, or actually most times, I will initially think the same thoughts that I've done in the past. I would initially even sometimes react more so on a shorter time frame. I sometimes even react the same way that I usually do when those patterns arise. But what I'm noticing, and it's really subtle, And I think this is the breakthrough period. What I'm noticing is that even if I think the same old thoughts, even if I feel some of the same emotions or I'm triggered in the same old ways, as I process through some of that, I'm noticing that new ideas are springing up in the midst of that. It's almost as if my subconscious mind is saying, okay, well, we're not that anymore. What about this? And the ideas that come up are things that I never thought about before, or perspectives that I never, either entertained or took seriously enough to give it my attention or place my awareness on it. And I was speaking to someone in my reality, when I was experiencing something of the opposites, and I was sharing with them like some of these thoughts that are coming up in the midst of my reactionary period or my acknowledging of old thoughts are higher level thoughts. I feel like they are representative of my higher self, because some of the ideas they're not reactions, they're responses, but they're the kind of responses that align with who I really am. They make me feel confident and powerful to even entertain them as a possibility, as a potential. And so I think it's in the beginning, I felt like, why is this happening all over again? Why does it feel like I can't shake this pattern? And it's not that is the truth. That notion is part of the program. That notion is part of the reason why you keep seeing the program. You keep seeing the same pattern. It's because you're saying, why me? Why? You're giving negative emotion to it. You're giving energy and attention to it in a way that fuels it and that keeps it alive. But once the decision has been made that you're on this intentional creation journey, you can step back and see it as an opportunity to show up different. It's an opportunity to stabilize in the new identity. It's an opportunity to stabilize in your newfound awareness. And so those higher level thoughts that I would receive, those higher level ideas, or those higher level feelings and emotions that would come with those new ideas, I'm able to reinforce that, right? I'm able to reinforce that by remembering, no, I'm on this intentional creation journey. I'm intentionally contributing to my good. I'm intentionally contributing to the transformation that I need to align myself with the goodness of what's possible for me. And so when you know that, you can reaffirm in those moments when those higher level ideas come, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm on. And so because of that, I don't need to show up the same way. I don't need to have the same thoughts and be as passive as I used to be in the past. I don't need to recreate the same patterns. Instead, who am I really if all my desires were met, if all my needs were met, if all my prayers were answered? Who am I? I'm the one that's thinking the higher level thoughts. Okay, well, how would she handle this situation? And what needs to come about so that she feels most empowered and aligned with her true self? And so those are the things that the dialogue that's going to naturally transpire within you if you're actually being aware rather than falling back into the program and playing victim, right? Because again, that initial thought when opposite things started showing up, that's initially what I wanted to do. I wanted to say, oh my God, it's happening again. Nothing's changing. And then that puts you in a very powerless victimization mode. Right? And from there, you can't think straight. You can't think clearly. As a matter of fact, you only fuel the thoughts that come up from that pattern, and you only continue to perpetuate the cycle by reacting the same way. That's what keeps it alive. So, when you step into that power and you have the inner dialogue to reaffirm and remind yourself of what you're doing, that is the opportunity that you have to then stabilize, right? Because you're not showing up the same way, therefore you can't get the same results this time around. And that's something I was telling someone too. When you have those opposites come up and you're recognizing the patterns, but you've made a decision, I'm no longer that version of me that handles things this way. You never have to fear getting the same results because you're not the same you. You never have to fear getting the same results because you're not the same you. And so that is where you can extend grace for yourself, right? Because no, it's not a perfect process. And even if you do react, you have this newfound awareness. You're not reacting from the same conscious level of consciousness. So even if the outcomes are seemingly similar, they're not the same, because you have a newfound awareness, which means you're going to take another level of wisdom from this experience that popped up. And you're going to be able to play the game even better should it pop up again, right? Or you can use your tools like what we talk about in my intentional creation course to recreate scenarios, right? If this thing is popping up and it's no longer favorable or desirable, there's all kinds of techniques that can be used to help you shift your emotional state, stabilize in your thought processes and your consciousness, which will then shift your energy, shift you into a parallel universe where all of these things are transpiring in the way that works for you. You can literally influence or change your circumstances just from shifting the way you perceive it. And so that's what I teach in my intentional creation course, which, shameless plug, it is still currently available on my website at bcstarkspr.com for $222. That is my favorite number. If you've been listening to my podcast, you understand the significance behind it. I think it's a really cool number, price point. Don't know how long I'm going to keep it that way, but I do enjoy the number and the synchronicities of its significance in my journey. So check that out. If it sounds like it interests you, you can learn some of these tools that I'm talking about to help you navigate your journey and be the intentional creator that you always desire to be. And so another thing I wanted to get into, but I think I might even save it for a totally different topic, is word choice when it comes to leveling up and being an intentional creator, because different words mean different things to people in their journeys and their subconscious mind. And there was a topic that came up. I came across a video or something earlier today, and they were talking about the word desire and the word want, and how those two words, desire and want, naturally imply the lack of something. So to desire something means that you acknowledge or you're conscious of not having it. Or to want something means to acknowledge that you are aware of not having it. And earlier in my journey, I would beg to differ. I feel like words sometimes are charged with the meaning that we've accepted for it. And for me, want didn't always apply lack. It didn't always imply lack. For me, it just implied as something that I identify with. But the more that I've been doing this journey and I'm starting to be more conscious of word choice, I'm actually finding myself retracting a little bit, because I always believe that if you can find some kind of inkling of believing something, then that leaves room for possibility of your subconscious mind to fully accept it. And so I've been entertaining this notion that maybe desire can imply lack. Maybe want can imply lack. It doesn't have to. And I'm not implying that any of you listening should accept that. But for me, because again, I work with words. I'm a communications director in my 9-to-5. And so I'm constantly writing, and, I study journalism. So words are my art, my field of art and my skill set. So I had that awareness, and I said, you know what? I'm going to replace the word desire and want with choose. Because ultimately that's what it implies when I say I have a desire for something, or, a desire comes to me. It's really just implying a decision or a choice, right? Decision and choice are interchangeable. So for me, I shifted because I didn't want to leave room for doubt. So when I say what I desire desires me, right? I don't want to leave room or that gap to have my subconscious somehow shift into the idea that desire means I don't have it yet. What I desire, meaning what I don't have yet, desires me, meaning it also lacks me. And so that's not what I want to put into my subconscious. So I realized that if I'm going to be doing these affirmations or these auto suggestions, which, by the way, I talked about auto suggestions in the last podcast, take a listen. But if I'm going to be doing these auto suggestions and affirmations, I want to make sure that my subconscious is fully on board, and word choice matters in that regard. So for me, I'm choosing to shift from the words desire and want, which ironically, I wrote a book called I Want It All. Who knows, I might go in and republish the book and write I choose it all, or I decide it all. Because that is a lot firmer of a title to me. I think it's a more precise in terms of its meaning and what it actually implies. So yes, I choose. What I choose chooses me. What I decide decides upon me as well. What I decide upon decides upon me. I can use that word decide or choose or choice or, all of the variations of those two words to replace the words desires or want, because I don't want to be implying to my subconscious that I don't have the thing yet. When I'm speaking to myself these days, I'm speaking to myself from a space of power and acceptance and knowing, right? And so when I'm knowing, you want to use words that are definitive, words that are precise, words that don't speak around what you're doing, but speak directly to. So if I choose something, that is like a decision has been made. If I desire something, that is like I have a craving for something that I don't have. I have a want for something that's not here yet. And I choose not to be in a space of lack for anything that I'm intentionally creating. Instead, I choose to be in a state of knowing, a state of inner power, and a state of inner conviction for what it is that I'm intentionally creating. And so I'm going to be precise with my words as it relates to that. So that's just what I wanted to touch on today. I hope that what I talked about can be beneficial to anyone who's listening. If you are enjoying this podcast so far, feel free to hit the support button. And how do you do that? That is anchor.fm/BC_Starks/support. And depending on the platform that you're listening to this on, again, I'm available on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, and pretty much any other podcast platform. But if you're listening on Anchor, you can hit support and support my podcast. Pick your level of support. It would be greatly appreciated. It helps me continue and stay in my flow. In the meantime, keep in contact. Follow me on YouTube. I also upload these as videos on YouTube, whichever is convenient for you to listen. So I guess I'll wrap this up. And until next time, thanks for tuning in.